Part 60. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 591. In just half a minute, the originally bustling streets were in chaos. Amidst the roar of guns and cannons, the city became a battlefield on the Pantheon. The people who had rushed towards the troops before were now running in the opposite direction like a backward tide. They were all terrified, crying, and howling. They each dropped the salutes and things in their hands, and their faces turned pale as they just ran for their lives. The winged flame bug whose wings were damaged by the missile fell to the street. It landed 100 meters away from Xiaoping'an. The surrounding streets were full of people fleeing. When the winged flame bug shook its head, vibrated its wings, and climbed up from the ruins again, looking at the fleeing people on the street, the eyes of the winged flame bug suddenly turned red and hot. The high temperature began to gradually condense in its mouthparts again. "Dad, Dad!" A little girl of 11 or 12 years old stood in front of the winged flame insect. She was stunned by the winged flame insect that turned over and moved again. She had forgotten to run, but her face was pale and stunned. Standing, calling Daddy, the flying winged flame insect stood in front of her, like a terrifying behemoth. "Hadwig, run quickly!" A man in his 40s rushed towards the side and yelled at the little girl. Just when the flames from the mouthparts of the winged flame bug were about to spit out and annihilate the surrounding streets, a sword light that was difficult to catch with the naked eye flashed, and then a sharp sonic boom sounded in the air. The head of the winged flame insect suddenly fell to the ground, and its huge body suddenly fell down. As soon as the figure flashed, Xiaoping'an stood on the head of the winged flame insect. He was holding the 7-star sword whip that had turned into a long whip in his hand. He shook his head slightly. As the saying goes, eating people has a short mouth and taking advantage of others is soft. With the benefit of the Xuanhuan sect, when encountering such a scene, Xiaoping'an felt that he had no choice but to take action. Since it was to save people, there might be a boundary bead in the body of this flying winged flame insect, which could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. In the blink of an eye, the huge body of the winged flame insect had been received by Xiaoping'an into the secret mandala. The next second, Xiaoping'an's figure flashed and came to the little girl. The next second, Xiaoping'an and the little girl had appeared in front of the little girl's father. "Take the child and leave here quickly." Xiaoping'an handed the little girl to her father and disappeared in a flash. The little girl's father stayed for a few seconds, then quickly hugged his child and left. Xiaoping'an's speed was so fast that the man didn't even see clearly. Boom, boom. 2 balls of fire exploded in the sky. The windows of the nearby building and some of the roofs of the building were all shattered. Countless glass and building debris flew around like raindrops. Those were 2 missiles detonated by another flying winged flame bug. The flying winged flame bug that detonated the 2 missiles flexibly turned in the sky and dived down the street at high speed. Just when it was about to turn the street on the ground into a sea of fire, Xiaoping'an suddenly appeared. On its back, with a curl of the sword whip, the sword blade, which exceeded the speed of sound, cut through the head of the winged flame insect in the air. The head and body of the winged flame insect were separated in the air in an instant, before the 2-part body fell. On the ground, Xiaoping'an has been received into the secret mandala. It was not difficult for Xiaoping'an to deal with these 6 Yang realm flying winged flame bugs in the past. As long as these flying winged flame bugs did not occupy an absolute numerical advantage, these bugs faced Xiaoping'an's top-grade soul weapon and came to give him what's more. Xiaoping'an is already in the quasi-7 sun realm, so it will be easier to deal with 1 or 2 winged flame bugs. Xiaoping'an, who easily killed 2 winged flame bugs, turned around and rushed towards the mantis bugs again. Boom! 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 The tank's armor-piercing bullets continued to explode around the bodies of the mantis insects. But those few mantises relied on their flexible dodges to fly on the street. 2 mantises even jumped onto the buildings and buildings on the street, grabbing the outer walls of the buildings with their terrifying feet. Moving forward quickly, After the mantis crawled over the wall of the building, a deep mark was left on the wall, and the steel bars inside were exposed. Cannonballs continued to explode around the mantises. The buildings on both sides of the street were suddenly riddled with holes, and some of the buildings already started to burn. But the army doesn't care about this. For the army, their current task is just to destroy these invading monsters, rather than considering what kind of damage their own firepower will cause to the buildings on the street. It's just that at such a close distance, the moving speed of the tank barrel makes it difficult to catch up with those mantis bugs, so the hit rate is very low. Even if those armor-piercing bullets hit, a layer of black mist will surge up from the mantis bugs. The black mist will dissolve all the power of the explosion, but at the same time, the black mist on the mantis bugs will also be consumed, and the black mist will be consumed. The fog will become thinner and no longer maintain its original thickness amid the constant explosions. The army on Pantheon has been fighting these invading creatures for a long time. They know very well that the only way to kill these bugs with black mist is to first use up the black mist on those bugs, and then use their armor-piercing bullets. It is possible to tear the bodies of these insects. Things like bullets and rockets flew towards the mantises like raindrops. However, this time, the two sides were too close. Less than half of the black mist on the mantis worms was consumed, and several mantis worms had already rushed into the formation of the troops. Several tanks were cut open like tofu under the mantis's terrifyingly sharp forelimbs and detonated. A tank weighing dozens of tons was lifted up by a mantis and hit an armored vehicle behind it. As soon as a mantis swung its forelimbs, the bodies of more than a dozen soldiers who were shooting around were cut into two pieces and flew around. Once close, the mantis is like entering a deserted place. The troops have begun to become confused. The armored battalion covers, other battalions retreat, retreat, retreat first, call the Army Aviation Group for support. The commanders yelled and retreated amid the hail of bullets. At this moment, Xiaopinggan rushed over. Because he was so fast, the panicked soldiers around him didn't notice anyone entering the battlefield. As soon as a mantis knife overturned an armored vehicle, Xiaopinggan flew onto the back of the mantis knife insect, penetrated the mantis knife insect's soul with his sword, killed it, put the mantis knife insect's body into the secret mandala, and at the same time leaped up, avoiding the attack of another mantis knife insect that noticed his arrival. He killed another mantis knife insect with another sword blow, and then put the mantis knife insect's body into the secret mandala. In just a few seconds, Xiaopinggan killed all the mantis bugs that had just rushed into the army and sent them to the secret mandala. A few seconds later, those troops who were retreating in panic suddenly discovered that in the chaos and smoke of the explosion, the mantis bugs that had just rushed into the armored battalion suddenly disappeared. There was a flame insect in the sky just now, but it seems to have disappeared. Everyone was in shock and didn't know what happened. Xiaopinggan has used illusion magic to become invisible. He stands in the sky of the city and looks at the troops below who are gradually being gathered together and the people who are still fleeing in all directions. Thick smoke rises from the ground to the sky, full of blood. The streets were in a mess, many buildings were still burning, and the corpses had not yet had time to restrain themselves. Xiaopinggan shook his head and said to himself, "It should be almost done. If there is more, please wish yourself well." Standing at this height and looking towards the west of the city, you can indeed see the continuous mountains undulating on the horizon to the west of the city. That should be the Nikko Mountains. If you pass through the Nikko Mountains and then cross a sea area, you should be able to reach it. The coordinate point of No B1768 that hides his 7-sun realm divine spring. Xiaopinggan didn't waste any more time, flew into the clouds and became invisible, and flew quickly towards the west. If nothing happens, he will arrive at Chidorihara in half a day. More than 10 minutes later, Xiaopinggan had just flown over 100 kilometers and was arriving in the wild. Suddenly, Xiaopinggan felt a warning sign in his heart. Without even thinking about it, 4 huge spinning ice shields several meters thick appeared above his head, surrounding him. Boom! Thunder suddenly sounded, golden snakes danced wildly in the sky, and a bolt of lightning fell on Xiaopingan's head. Several layers of thick ice shields instantly shattered on top of Xiaopingan's head and evaporated. A trace of electric light spread to Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan felt a tightness in his chest, and almost spurted out a mouthful of blood. His hair was numb, and his hair suddenly stood up in the electric light that surrounded his body. The small half of the robe he was wearing was shattered in the electric light. This lightning was so terrifying, it had been planned for a long time, and judging from its power, it was definitely not something a summoner in the Sixth Sun realm could unleash. Even though Xiaopingan could summon lightning himself, this time caught him off guard. But that's not all. Just as the lightning fell, a summoned flame giant dozens of meters tall suddenly appeared in the clouds around Xiaopingan. The flame giant appeared in the sky. As soon as he reached out, a big hand grabbed Xiaopingan. Damn it! This is the time when a summoner's reaction is truly tested. Just as the flame giant grabbed it with both hands, a golden lotus emerged from the sole of Xiaopingan's foot, and the magical skill of writing a poem in 7 steps burst out instantly. In the blink of an eye, the whole person disappeared from the place, and all of a sudden appeared in front of the flame giant's head. Death! Xiaopingan roared angrily. He slashed out the 7-star sword and penetrated the giant's head. He controlled the sword with both hands and pulled it down from the giant's head. The flaming giant dozens of meters high suddenly fell. Just in the sky, he was cut in half by Xiaopingan's sword and disappeared in an instant. Not bad, not bad, you were able to escape from my ambush, avoid the 5 thunders, and kill the 3rd-level flame giant I summoned. Your body is not bad. A cold voice appeared in the sky. Xiaopingan looked up and saw a summoner with a wrinkled face and silver hair standing in front of him. There was a faint layer of black mist surging around that person's body, his eyes were blood red, and his gaze held strong oppression. Xiaopingan's eyes narrowed sharply. No, this is not a person, but an ancient remnant. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 592. To be honest, this is the first time that Xiaopingan has heard someone praise her for her good health. If a woman praised him like this, Xiaopingan would happily accept it. However, when the person who praised him like this was an ancient remnant, Xiaopingan's goosebumps suddenly rose in just a moment. The ancient survivors are not humans, they are just monsters occupying human bodies. To them, all humans are objects that can be taken away. This ancient relic looked at Xiaopingan with a ferocious and greedy smile on his face, and stretched out his scarlet tongue to lick his lips. His eyes were unabashedly greedy, just like a hungry wolf seeing like bloody flesh. Judging from the aura on his body, this ancient relic is already a summoner in the 7 Sun realm. In the crisis, Xiaopingan quickly calmed down and judged the situation in front of him. This ancient remnant appeared here. This was not a coincidence, but this ancient relic had been in that city before. He appeared together with those Zerg, but he hid next to him and killed those Zerg himself. Exposed and then ambushed by him. The only good news is that there is only one ancient survivor who ambushed him. If there are 2, there is no need to hide the other one. Moreover, this ancient remnant didn't know much about his abilities. Ha ha ha, you can't escape. I'm going to kill your body, and your Horcrux is mine. The ancient survivor was afraid of long nights and dreams, so as he spoke, he flew towards Xiaopingan fiercely. With a wave of his hand, dozens of scorching fireballs blasted directly towards Xiaopingan, blocking all Xiaopingan's escape routes. The fireballs summoned by the 7 Sun Realm Masters and the fireballs summoned by ordinary summoners are definitely at 2 levels in terms of power and speed. The fireball flew across the sky, and the scorching high temperature caused the surrounding air to twist violently, with a rumbling roar. The flying fireball also changed its trajectory, intertwined into a huge fire wheel, and flew in front of Xiaopingan in the blink of an eye. A lotus flower once again appeared at Xiaoping's feet. This magical skill of growing lotus step by step was brought into full play by Xiaoping at this time. Once the lotus flower appeared, even if it was surrounded by mountains of swords and seas of fire, it could still find a way out. With just a flash of his body, Xiaoping avoided the roaring fireball in the air. He suddenly appeared 100 meters away. Rush away. Xiaoping has many methods, such as formations and earth escape techniques, which can only be used close to the ground. Now he can't gain any advantage in competing with this ancient relic in the air. He can only stand close to the ground. It's not that easy to run away. Seeing Xiaoping's movements, the ancient survivor turned around and rushed towards Xiaoping. Boom! Boom! Two wildly dancing thunders appeared from the sky almost at the same time, one blasting towards Xiaoping, and the other blasting towards the ancient relic. Xiaoping and the ancient remnant summoned thunder and lightning to blast each other at the same time. But at this time, the terror and strength of the ancient survivor was revealed. The crazy thunder summoned by Xiaoping directly hit the ancient survivor, but was blocked by the layer of black mist surging on the ancient survivor. After a thunderbolt, the black mist on the bodies of the ancient survivors rolled, only a slightly thinner layer, and they rushed towards Xiaoping without any hindrance. When another violent thunder struck Xiaoping, a huge figure of dark Xuanhuan suddenly appeared on Xiaoping's head. The tortoise-like Xuanhuan protects Xiaoping like a huge umbrella cover. Xiaoping holds the Xuanhuan with both hands like a huge shield. The moment the lightning fell, Xuanhuan's snake head turned and glanced at Xiaoping. That look conveyed a wealth of information. You actually used me as a shield. Xiaoping also glanced at Xuanhuan, who called you Pai Ho. Boom! Thunder struck the thick ice spit out by Xuanhuan. The ice was completely shattered and vaporized in an instant. The remaining electric light fell on Xuanhuan's thick and dark tortoise shell, causing Xuanhuan's tortoise shell to glow with blue light and make a sizzling sound. Countless tiny electric lights appeared. Xiaoping's figure, which was originally flying towards the ground, was struck by lightning, and as if it had received a boost, it suddenly became faster and flew towards the ground fiercely. The face of the ancient relic changed. It seemed that he did not expect that Xiaoping could use such a move when he was running for his life. He continued to chase Xiaoping, but the Xuanhuan held above Xiaoping's head twisted its neck and was already attacking him. It spits out ice cones like a machine gun. The ancient relic was also extremely powerful. With a wave of his hand, fireballs flew out one after another, constantly melting the ice cones spit out by Xuanhuan. But Xiaoping was not idle either. At the moment when the ice cones melted, Xiaoping held up the Xuanhuan with one hand and took out a thunder talisman with the other hand and swung it towards the ancient relic. Those thunder symbols are all palm-sized gold pieces, and each gold piece has a divine inscription with the word thunder written on it. This is after Xiaoping previously mastered the technique of summoning the divine thunder of Wu Yi. He also mastered the divine inscription with the word thunder. Xiaoping used the divine inscription with the word thunder to refine the thunder talisman for himself. At this time, the thunder talisman really showed its effect. As Xiaoping's thunder talisman was thrown out, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky and directly hit the ancient survivor. The effect of this thunder talisman was not comparable to that of fireball and ice cone. The talisman came out of thunder and fell as fast as lightning. Hard to guard against. In an instant, lightning flashed across the sky, and the ancient survivor was like a light bulb lit in the sky. It was so bright that it was dazzling. A thunder talisman knocked away some of the black energy from the ancient survivor. I think you have other methods. The ancient relic was also angry, sneered, and waved his hand, and a bone dragon with white bones appeared next to him. The bone dragon roared, and then flew towards Xiaoping. Go! But the next second, the smile on the face of the ancient survivor froze, because he saw Xiaoping's hand, this time, took out a dozen thick thunder talismans. Xiaopingyan threw out the thunder talismans one by one. Thunder danced wildly in the sky. The bone dragon was directly blasted away under the two thunder talismans. The other thunder talismans continued to turn into lightning and headed towards the ancient. The remains fell on them, hindering the actions of the ancient survivors, causing the ancient survivors to be distracted from dealing with the crazy thunders that were constantly bombarding themselves. The black energy on the body of the ancient survivor had no problem withstanding 2 or 3 wild thunders. However, in the face of the constant thunder, the ancient survivor was unable to resist with his body alone, and had to summon a thick ice shield around him. Resist the thunder talisman blasted by Xiaopingyan. Some high-level spells have a cooling time limit, but the prepared thunder talisman has no cooling time limit when used. At this time, the difference is suddenly revealed. Wow, wow, wow! The ancient relic screamed in anger in the air. While guarding against the thunder talisman, balls of fireballs kept blasting out from his hands. Every time he approached Xiaopingyan, he would be hit by Xiaopingyan. Ping An's thunder talisman blasted away, and all his attacks on Xiaopingyan were blocked by the shield like Xuanhuan in various ways, and at the same time, Xiaopingyan accelerated towards the ground. Normal Xuanhuan had already dissipated several times at this time, but Xiaopingyan kept injecting divine power into Xuanhuan's body, so the huge shield on his head never dissipated. Looking from a distance, streaks of fire in the sky are chasing streaks of thunder falling rapidly from the sky. 2 minutes later, during the pursuit, Xiaopingyan landed firmly on the ground. The next second, dozens of huge, scorching fireballs fell from the sky and landed on the ground, melting the rocks on the ground and turning over the soil. The area of several hundred square meters where Xiaopingyan landed was turned into a piece of scorched earth, with no grass growing and rolling magma. However, Xiaopingyan has disappeared. The ancient survivor who was chasing down thought that Xiaopingyan had used some deception to escape. With a wave of his hand, a summoned net surrounded him from all directions. Thousands of rockets fell from the sky like raindrops, completely covering the ground within a mile radius. Like a rain of fire. There is no movement in the net. The falling rockets passed through the sky and the ground like raindrops, but they did not hit any hidden targets, and the flight trajectory of any rocket was not changed. Seeing this situation, the ancient survivor looked shocked, his eyes flashed fiercely, and finally he let out an unwilling roar. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 593. Wow! Tens of thousands of meters deep underground, Xiaopingyan's figure, who had just escaped from the pursuit of the ancient survivors, was suddenly revealed in a crack in the moist limestone underground. The mouthful of blood that was suppressed in his throat could no longer be held back. I spit it out all at once. After spitting out such a mouthful of blood, the depressed atmosphere in his chest and abdomen suddenly disappeared a lot, and Xiaopingyan felt much better. The power of the Seven Sun realm is really undeniable. That ancient relic is not an ordinary Seven Sun realm. It is estimated that he is at least a very experienced Seven Sun realm powerhouse. The thick Xuanhuan has withstood countless bombardments, and it looks fine on the surface. In fact, the internal organs are still shaken and have been injured, but the injuries are not serious. Grandma, these ancient relics are too difficult to deal with. The layer of black mist on their bodies is more powerful than the black mist on the mantis bugs. It can resist almost all spells. I have consumed so many thunder talismans. They didn't even kill him. They are still summoners themselves and can use summoners spells. How can they fight in this battle? Xiaopingyan muttered to himself, smiled bitterly, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and moved his hand. He took out a bottle of pills from the space equipment, poured out a few pills, raised his head, and swallowed them. When the elixir entered his throat, It turned into heat and quickly dissipated towards Xiaoping's internal organs and limbs. The depression in his chest and abdomen finally dissipated. However, this time was dangerous, but Xiaoping suddenly had a strong confidence in his own strength. Unknowingly, he was able to fight against the ancient survivors of the Seven Sun realm and escape intact. A year ago, he wouldn't have dared to think about it. Back then, Yan 11 almost tortured him to death, but now, if Yan 11 stood in front of him again, the person being abused would probably turn into Yan 11. However, this battle also reminded Xiaoping and gave him a strong sense of crisis. This encounter with this ancient relic had exposed Xiaoping's two life-saving trump cards, Earth Escape Technique and Thunder Talisman. Fortunately, there are relatively few people who master techniques like Earth Escape. What if I encounter an ancient remnant who knows Earth Escape next time? Doesn't that mean that there is no way to go from heaven to earth, and I can only accept others and slaughter me? This 10,000 God star is more dangerous than I thought. I must bathe in the divine spring as soon as possible and advance to the Seven Sun realm. Then I can improve the ability of the Formation Master and get a few more powerful formation discs. The formation is also a life-saving weapon. Xiaoping murmured to himself, with a firm look in his eyes. After resting here for a while, Xiaoping swallowed a handful of magical pills again, turned around and submerged into the ground again, and started to rush underground using the Earth Escape technique. There are still more than 7,000 kilometers from here to Chidorihara. For such a long distance, flying is actually the most convenient, fast and energy-saving. However, Xiaoping was just ambushed by the ancient survivors. He didn't know the ancient survivors. There was no other weird method, so to be on the safe side and avoid having long nights and dreams, he simply spent several times of his divine power and directly used the Earth Escape technique to rush underground, heading towards Chidorihara. At this time, everything must make way for him to advance to the Seven Yang realm. Using the Earth Escape technique to travel thousands of miles like this requires a lot of magical energy. Every time Xiaoping is on the road for a period of time, he will find an underground gap or space to rest for a while, take some magical pills to restore his physical strength, and then continue on his way. If he is sleepy, he will find a place. Come out, release the formation disc, get some sleep and then go on your way. Sometimes he is afraid of getting lost underground and deviating from the direction, so Xiaoping will show his head on the ground for a while, take a look at the surrounding environment, correct the direction, and then continue on his way. Xiaoping was actually right to be cautious. Seeing that Xiaoping had the ability to escape, the ancient remnant became even more unwilling to let Xiaoping escape. On the surface, the ancient remnant pretended to have left the place, but in fact, he tried his best on the ground and used secret methods to summon countless birds and beasts, which scattered in the sky to monitor the movements within hundreds of miles for him. Waiting for Xiaoping to show up. The ancient remnant kept guard for 3 days and searched for thousands of miles to the west of Jinlan city. He still found nothing, so he left unwillingly. Chidorihara is a vast sparse forest grassland on Pantheon. This sparse forest grassland is sandwiched between countless lakes, large and small, and some hills. Between those lakes and grasslands are large wetlands. These lakes once beautiful and tranquil, it is a paradise for birds. Almost thousands of species of birds live here, so this place is named Chidorihara. 5 days later, Chidorihara. Bang! With the sound of a gunshot, a group of elegant white swans were frightened and flew up from the wetland by the lake. However, there were also a few white swans whose bodies were penetrated by the tiny steel balls, their feathers scattered, and their bodies were covered in blood. He suddenly fell to the water's edge. Hurry, there is meat to eat. There was a disturbance in the grassland by the lake. A hunter with a shotgun and a dark face and a few homeless-looking people emerged from the grass, rowing a simple raft. He waded through the water, rushed towards the downed white swans, and excitedly grabbed the swans covered in blood. The sound of gunshots spread far away, startling countless birds, and also startled Xiaopingyan, who had just emerged from the ground, thinking something had happened. Xiaopingyan was extremely cautious and immediately summoned the god of fortune boy, letting him fly out and rushed towards the place where the gunshots were heard. In a flash, the god of fortune boy came to the lake and saw the few people holding guns. People are fishing out swans from the water. There is nothing unusual around. This peaceful Chidorihara, because it has abundant water and grass, no monsters, and provides natural food, has already been invaded by some homeless people and refugees who have fled from the city. Those homeless people and refugees have we set up a lot of tents by the water and lived a semi-secluded life in the wild for the time being. After discovering that there were no unusual threats around him, Xiaopingyan breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at the surrounding environment and quickly located the coordinate point of No C-1768. The coordinate point of No C-1768 was in a sparse woodland near the lake. When Xiaopingyan came here, he saw at a glance a tall tree in the woodland that had been reduced to char by lightning. The big tree has been here for who knows how many years. It is completely black, like a fossil, and has lost all vitality. The coordinate point of No C-1768 is that tree. Xiaopingyan came to the charred big tree and looked around. Without much effort, he found an abnormality in the soil about 5 or 6 meters deep under the roots of the big tree. What seems to be hidden in the soil? For summoners in the Sixth Sun realm, it is completely effortless to take out the things under the soil. Xiaopingyan escaped directly underground and saw what existed here. It was a huge crystal cluster almost half a meter long. The crystal cluster was densely covered with some strange runes. The middle of the crystal cluster was hollowed out, and the entire crystal cluster became a container. Some golden liquid was there. The center of the crystal cluster swayed. Not to mention anything else, the value of this crystal cluster containing the divine spring of the Seven Yang realm is no less than that of a magic weapon. Next to this crystal cluster, there is another small piece of crystal. There is a series of numbers on that small piece of crystal, which is a coordinate point, and the words Wanchen Sect Contact Point are written in the language of Yuan Kai world. These things are buried deep underground and cannot be detected with metal detectors. They are obviously prepared for the summoners who come here. Xiaopingyan reached out and touched the crystal cluster. The crystal cluster blended with the surrounding soil, but also exuded a pleasant special energy. A bit of divine power penetrated into the middle of the crystal cluster, and the liquid in the middle of the crystal cluster felt that with a little divine power, the light immediately started, and the light was bright. It is indeed the divine spring of the Seven Suns realm. Xiaopingyan is happy. Huangtian paid off and finally found it. The next second, Xiaopingyan directly took the crystal cluster from the soil layer, put the crystal cluster and the small crystal block with the coordinates of the Wanchen Sect contact point into his space equipment, and then quickly used the Earth Escape technique. Leave here. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 594. Quiet means hidden, quiet and profound. The Netherworld realm is the most important level in the summoner's power system that connects the past and the future. Without advancing to the Netherworld realm, it is difficult to reach the realm that is so hidden and unknown to outsiders. Xiaopingyan didn't quite understand why Tanja realm was so important before. It wasn't until he bathed in the divine spring of Tanja realm and watched the earth-shaking changes that took place in the secret mandala that Xiaopingyan finally had a clear understanding of Tanja realm. Tens of thousands of meters deep underground in Chidorihara, Xiaopingyan melted a hard rock wall in a piece of dense underground rock soil, and used the activation array disk to construct a hidden shelter for himself in the rock wall. Shelter, and then, in this shelter, he began to bathe in the divine spring. At this level, Xiaopingyan no longer needs to lie in the bathtub when bathing in the divine spring. He sits cross-legged in the air with his naked body. Under him is the black Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan is controlling a ball of water to wrap Xiaopingan's body. All over the body, the divine spring has been integrated into the water and has been completely absorbed by Xiaopinggan's body. Xiaopinggan's whole body was flashing with a layer of golden light like the blazing sun. And Xiaopinggan's secret mandala was turned upside down again. The seventh sun finally condensed and appeared in Xiaopinggan's secret mandala. The area of Lingxiao city has expanded again. Outside Lingxiao city, there are mountains, rivers, and lakes. Suddenly, the weather is changing, and Kyushu has appeared. On the distant sea opposite Lingxiao city, several floating fairy islands are looming. The secret mandala has become larger again. The combat effectiveness and plane arrival time of all the summoned soldiers and war partners in the secret mandala have been greatly improved with the blessing of the Seven Suns realm, and the power of the spells has also reached a higher level. The most important thing is that there is a huge pool and fountain under the sky caisson of the temple of the secret mandala. In the caisson of the temple, the dense light of divine power has formed a swirling cyclone in the Seven Suns realm. Like the center of a storm, it looks extremely mysterious, and underneath the cyclone is the huge golden pool. There is no water in the newly formed pool, it is dry and looks a bit strange. Xiaopinggan was wondering when he saw that Kangja had already put all the insect crystals that Xiaopinggan had obtained before from the secret warehouse of the mandala into the pool. When the insect crystal entered the pool, it immediately melted and turned into golden water waves. A powerful aura of divine power spread out from the pool. The fountain in the pool sprayed out golden water splashes, overflowing with spiritual light and full of vitality. Xiaopinggan was shocked. This is the second source of divine power in the secret mandala. You can directly use insect crystals to transform divine power. He finally understood why the Wanchen sect wanted to collect these insect crystals before, because for high-level summoners, insect crystals were the fastest and most powerful channel for transforming divine power. The insect crystals that Kangji dropped just now directly transformed more than 30,000 points of divine power into the divine spring. Xiaopinggan's upper limit of divine power at this moment was 8,877 points. The converted divine power was more than 4 times the upper limit of his own divine power. This is one of the sources of the power of Seven Sun Realm summoners. With so much divine power, various characters can be continuously summoned to quickly enrich Lingxiao city. After half a day, the golden light emanating from Xiaopinggan, who was sitting cross-legged on Xuanhuan's back, gradually converged and returned to his original nature. Xiaopinggan finally opened his eyes. Xiaopinggan's eyes flashed with divine light, and there was a little darkness in the depths of his eyes. The divine light was extremely deep. The blue water masses flowing around his body suddenly dissipated. Finally the Seven Sun realm. Xiaopinggan let out a long breath. Although there were some twists and turns in the process of advancing to the Seven Sun realm this time, this event is definitely a milestone since he became a summoner. However, with no one to share the joy in his heart at this moment, it was inevitable that he would feel a little lonely. If it were another place, for example, in Shangjing City, if a summoner advanced to the Seven Sun realm, there would definitely be a big celebration. In the circle, it would be enough to cause a sensation. Back in Shangjing City, the strongest summoners he could get rid of were the Iron-Faced Man and Lin Yi, the leader of the Judgment Army. Both of them were in the Seven Suns realm, but Lin Yi was a god's favored one, so he was already in the Seven Suns realm. Integrating the domain world beads and mastering domain skills, he is almost invincible among the strong men in the Seven Yang realm. I wonder where I can get the domain boundary pearl. There is a little hope of fusing the world beads to control the field, but for Xiaopinggan, as long as it is a world bead, he is confident that there is nothing he cannot fuse. If the gods can make it easier for the summoner to fuse the world beads, then maybe he can. He is the greatest favored person in the world. However, the matter of the realm boundary pearl can be put aside for now, but there is one thing in front of us that must be dealt with immediately. When the divine spring of the Seven Yang realm was integrated just now, the divine spring cleansed every cell and organ of Xiaoping's body, almost completing another internal reshaping and strengthening of Xiaoping's body. Xiaoping's perception of this process was extremely clear. Originally, I wanted to use this process to sense where in the body the toxin of the poison Wanchen sect gave me was hidden, and then think of a way to see if I could remove the toxin. It's not that Xiaoping wants to blame the Wanchen sect, but he knows that he is responsible, and the plan to mend the sky is of great importance. He just doesn't allow his life to be in the hands of others. Now it seems that the Wanchen sect he had fulfilled the agreement with him, but if Wanchen sect still left a backhand in the poison to control him in the future, he had to guard against this. It's just that while his body was bathing and absorbing the divine spring of the seven yang realm just now, he couldn't feel the presence of any toxins in his body. His body's bone marrow, blood, meridians, muscles, skin, organs, and even the body's his hair was washed away by the divine spring of the seven yang realm, but he could not feel the presence of any poison. This is strange. This situation is a bit abnormal. It would be nice if there were knowledgeable experts around me who could give me some advice. Xiaoping touched his face and muttered to himself, but just after saying this, Xiaoping said, I remembered something. His eyes lit up, and he clapped his palms fiercely. Mr. Mu, why did I forget Mr. Mu? Mu Lao is in Muling Fortress and has been alive for who knows how many years. Xiaoping has not returned to Muling Fortress since entering the Pantheon. Now is the time to go to Muling Fortress and ask Mu Lao if he has any questions. There is no way to get rid of the poison of Wanchen sect. Xiaoping moved as soon as he said so. After deciding, he sat cross-legged on Xuanhuan's back, closed his eyes, and arrived at the Spirit World Temple. Through the teleportation arch of the Spirit World Temple, he returned directly to the Spirit World Fortress on Earth. Your Majesty, you are back. As soon as Xiaoping appeared in the square of Muling Fortress, Mu Lao's figure had already appeared in front of him, looking at Xiaoping with some surprise. Your Majesty, how come you have been poisoned by the spirit body? Xiaoping also discovered it without Mu Lao's reminder, because as soon as he appeared in the spirit world, he saw a snake-shaped black mist wrapped around his body. The snake-shaped black mist wrapped around his thighs to near the neck, very obvious. Xiaoping was only surprised for a second, and then he realized it instantly. Damn it, could it be that the toxin of the poison that Wanchen sect gave him was not actually in the body, but in the spirit body? This toxin can only enter the spirit body. You can only feel it when you reach the boundary. The poison in your Majesty's spirit body should not have possessed your Majesty's spirit body for a long time. Well, the poison is not very strong. It is just a low-level thing. As long as it is not induced, it will self-control in about 70 years dissipate. Mu Lao didn't seem to notice the wonderful expression on Xiaoping's face. He talked to himself, then stretched out a skinny hand, and with a thought, the snake-shaped black snake wrapped around Xiaoping's spirit body. The anger was sucked into his hand by Mu Lao, and he rubbed it into a black pill. Your Majesty has advanced to a high-level pastoralist and has mastered the high-level pastoralist's art of creating things with thoughts. To eliminate this kind of for low-level spirit poison, your Majesty only needs to enter the spirit world and use the method of creation to collect the poison. After saying these words, Mu Lao saw Xiaoping looking at him with a look of surprise and joy, and an unconcealable smile had already split from the corner of Xiaoping's mouth. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 595. What an unexpected surprise. Xiaoping did not expect that the poison from the Wanchen sect that had troubled him before could be cured so easily. Of course, it is easy for oneself. If it were another person, as long as that person did not have the ability to enter the spiritual world, or did not have the ability to create things with thoughts after entering, it would be impossible to detoxify the spirit body. Xiaoping took the black poison from Mu Lao's hand. As soon as he thought about it, the black poison turned into a black smoke again, wrapping around himself like a snake. When he thought about it again, the black smoke it recondensed into the form of elixir and appeared in his hand. It's so easy. Between his thoughts, Xiaoping's hand had created something out of thin air, condensing a snow-white porcelain bottle. He put the elixir into the porcelain bottle, capped the bottle, and handed it to Mr. Mew with emotion. He said, "I didn't expect there to be such a weird poison in the world. Please keep this poison Mew Lao for me. I may still have use for it in the future." Creating objects with thoughts is a skill mastered by high-level pastors. Xiaopingyan had already mastered the skill after he advanced to high-level pastors in the spirit world and returned to the pastoral fortress. This ability is very simple. As long as the soul power is sufficient, you can use your thoughts to create anything in the spiritual world, just like dreaming. "I wonder what this poison is made from," Xiaopingyan asked Mr. Mew another question. "This poison is made from the rhizomes of the two-world grass and the seven-emotion flower. The two-world grass mixed with the rhizome of the seven-emotion flower allows the poison to penetrate into the spiritual body through the physical body. Once the poison merges with the spiritual body, as long as the poisoned person, if a person smells or touches the pollen fragrance of kicking hua, the poison can be induced. These two realm grasses and seven emotion flowers should be rare things, right? It is indeed a rare thing. These two things can only grow in a special secret realm of the void, and the environmental requirements for their growth are very strict. Just the fragrance of a seven-emotion flower can spread thousands of miles away, and this poison-inducing." "Ah, so far?" Xiaopingyan asked in surprise. Mr. Mew nodded. "It's like your majesty, you drop a drop of blood into a pond. No matter how little the drop of blood is, no matter how much water there is in the pond, take a bowl of water from the pond, and put it into the bowl of water. There is also 1/1,000,000th of His Majesty's blood, which can be distinguished by the noses of some spiritual beasts. The fragrance of the seven emotions flower is also the same. The fragrance spreads into the air, goes with the wind, and melts in all directions, and it may be able to it affects people within a radius of 10,000 miles who have been poisoned by the spirit body." Xiaopingyan let out a long breath. "Thank you, Mr. Mew, I understand." After Mr. Mew explained this, Xiaopingyan finally understood how the Wanchen sect operates. It was really eye-opening and enlightening. If a person who has been poisoned by this poison returns to the world of god-killing insects before detoxifying, it will never happen unless it lasts forever. Wrapping yourself in a vacuum environment and not breathing, otherwise, the poison of the spiritual body will occur as soon as it comes into contact with the air of the god-killing insect realm, because there is an unknown amount of accumulated poison in the air of the god-slaying insect realm. The floral fragrance of the 7-year-old flower. "I see that your Majesty's spirit body has changed and become more powerful than before when you left the shepherd fortress. Your Majesty should have advanced to the Seven Suns realm." "How could your Majesty be poisoned by the spirit body?" asked Mr. Mew. "It's a long story. If I hadn't been poisoned, I wouldn't have been able to bathe and absorb the divine spring of the Seven Yang realm. This advancement may be delayed for a long time." The physical threat was lifted, and a stone weighed on Xiaopingyan's heart. Being moved away, Xiaopingyan felt that his whole body relaxed. "Okay, I will go back first. This time I came to the spirit world just to ask Mr. Mew about the detoxification. Now that the poison has been removed, that's okay, my body is hidden in one place and I can't leave it for too long." Seeing Xiaopingyan wandering around for a while before leaving, Mr. Mew was a little helpless and could only say, "Your Majesty, you have mastered the art of creating things with your thoughts. Don't forget to build yourself a starry sky realm in the spiritual world." High-level Mew: if a spiritual person wants to advance to become a pastor, this is the only way to go. The mirror of the starry sky allows His Majesty to carve out his own territory in the spiritual world. "Okay, I understand. When I have time, I will return to the spiritual world to build the starry sky mirror." After Xiaopingyan finished speaking, he waved to Mr. Mew, then walked briskly, turned around and walked away from the golden fortress. The arch leaves again. Mulao looked at it and could only shake his head, with a wry smile on his face. In the rock formation cavity tens of thousands of meters deep underground in Chidorihara, Xiaopingan suddenly opened his eyes, a relaxed smile appeared on his face, and he let out a long breath. It feels so good not to have your life pinched. After advancing to the Seven Sun realm, he was also freed from the poison of the spirit body. If the Wanshen sect knew that their Seven Sun realm divine spring had made him a wedding dress, he would probably vomit blood, ha ha ha. But then again, I have joined the Wanshen sect several times, and I can be considered to have connections and contributions to the Wanshen section. The Wanshen sect provides me with a share of the divine spring of the Seven Suns realm, so I won't suffer at all. The environment here is quite quiet and will not be disturbed by others. I will prepare some life-saving things for myself here before going out. As he spoke, Xiaopingan had already taken out a bronze array plate in his hand. Start researching. If a person stays alone for too long without saying a few words to himself, Xiaopingan is afraid that he will make something wrong with himself. Xiaopingan had previously killed 2 winged flame bugs and several mantis bugs. In addition to insect crystals, these bugs also provided Xiaopingan with 3 boundary beads. However, one of the 3 boundary beads was from Shenan. The boundary beads, one is the boundary bead of Yangche Wangxing, and the other is the 3-sided boundary bead of the net. These 3 boundary beads have been fused by Xiaopingan before, so they are useless to Xiaopingan and can only be collected as collectibles. The formation disc in Xiaopingan's hand was the formation disc that Lu Yizwen used to protect himself before. This formation disc is a chain formation. It is extremely well conceived and very powerful. This formation disc is divided into 2 layers. The outer layer is the ice and fire mystery formation, has excellent attack, defense, and confusion. The inner layer is an 8-level golden lock formation, which is as stable as an iron mountain. It can also reverse the door of life and death, and reverse the 7 skills. Once tied up, it will be really difficult to handle, even for those in the Seven Suns realm. It is difficult for a master to escape from the formation in a short period of time. Xiaopingan has refined arrays and puppets several times before. He already has considerable experience in refining arrays. He also has new insights into the Kunlun formation mechanism collection. He is no longer the inexperienced novice. At this moment, holding the formation disc that he had received from Lu Yizwen, Xiaopingan's hands were magically changing, and he was making spells one by one. It became a huge pile of parts. Even though the array disc is not big when you hold it in your hand, once it is reduced to the most basic components of the array disc using secret methods, those components are enough to pile up a lot of things in front of Xiaopingan, which is 1 or 2 cubic meters. A small half room. The array blanks, array weapons, array base, array eyes, array gates, etc. were all broken down by Xiaopingan and put away in different categories. If there are other formation masters here watching Xiaopingan dismantle the formation disc, I am afraid they will be surprised and admired, because in the eyes of the formation master, and formation master who can understand the mechanism of the formation disc and can easily dismantle other people's formation discs, they are all masters among the formation masters. Even if the average formation master can refine the formation discs himself, he does not have the ability to easily dismantle the formation discs of other formation masters. Dismantling the array disc is a high-level skill among array masters, and it is a sharp weapon. The formation master who made this formation disc is not very good. The formation disc components of this chain formation are actually so big. Looking at the formation disc components in front of him with sharp and professional eyes, Xiaopingan also shook his head. When a powerful formation master makes a formation disc, he can either make it bigger and bigger, and even use the rivers, lakes, seas, sun, moon, and stars as the formation device, or he can make it smaller and smaller, but the power is not reduced. The components for refining the array disc must be exquisite and concise, and the most avoidance is redundancy and complexity. An array device is probably heavy in price. In the eyes of Xiaopinghan, the array master who produced so many components after dismantling the array disk in front of him, it's really not a top-notch character. Xiaopinghan began to study the components of the formation disk in front of him one by one. The most critical thing about the chain formation disk is how to completely integrate the two different formation bases and formation eyes, and how they can be interlocked so that they only complement each other and do not inhibit each other. 2 days later, Xiaopinghan had gained some experience, so he tried to follow the idea of the serial formation disk and began to imitate an identical formation disk. It took 7 days to imitate this array. This chain array is imitated, and all the components are exactly the same. At most, the materials are slightly different. Xiaopinghan, who copied the first serial array, became energetic and interested. He began to create a second serial array disk with the same function according to his own idea. 7 or 8 days later, the second serial array disk was manufactured, and the volume of the components in the disk was reduced by a quarter. Xiaopinghan began to imitate the third one. The array plate of the third serial array was imitated, and the volume was reduced by 1/5 again. After imitating 3 consecutive arrays, Xiaopinghan found that he had a lot of experience with 2 consecutive arrays, and then he began to refine his first continuous array. Xiaopinghan's idea of formation disk is simple and crude, which is to pursue the continuous superposition of a single effect. Since the function of this formation disk is to trap people and save his own life, then Xiaopinghan will superimpose formation bases in the formation disk that can trap people. The outer layer of the formation disk is the 8-pass golden lock tortoise shell and the 5 elements inversion and confusion formation. The inner layer of the formation disk is still the 8-pass golden lock tortoise shell and the 5 elements inversion and confusion formation. The 2 formation disks are locked together, the 5 elements are inverted twice, the door of life and death changes twice, and the tortoise shell, the Iron Mountain, is covered with a layer of tortoise shell Iron Mountain, and it also has the effect of inversion. Although it does not have a strong attack power, it may be able to trap people to death. If you want to break out of the formation with brute force, there is absolutely no way. So easy. Xiaopinghan refined this 8-level golden lock tortoise shell and 5-element inverted and confusing chain formation in one breath, a total of 10 of them. Later, Xiaopinghan refined a lot of thunder talismans for himself. He hid underground and didn't care about the passage of time outside. Anyway, after his divine power in his body automatically recovered 4 times, Xiaopinghan had all the life-saving things he had prepared for himself. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 596. When Xiaopinghan saw Jinlan City again, Jinlan City had become a ruin. The bustling city that was bustling just a few months ago now looks like a pile of broken porcelain pieces pulled out from the ashes of an old brick kiln. The bustling crowds in the city have disappeared, and the high-rise buildings have turned into ruins. The few buildings that have not yet collapsed are skeletal, and there are exposed and twisted steel structures everywhere. The whole building stands like a broken skeleton. In the city, there are traces of smoke and fire everywhere. There are building ruins everywhere on the street. Human bones can be faintly seen among the building ruins. There is almost no intact building in the whole city. Several wild dogs are looking for food in the city where there is still gunpowder smoke. The entire city is full of ruins. There are huge craters everywhere on the ground and incomplete buildings of the city. The rusty remains of armored vehicles were intertwined with the broken hard shells of mantis bugs. In the southeast of the city, there was a huge crater with a diameter of more than 100 meters. The buildings around the crater were all reduced to dust. I don't know what kind of terrifying crater it is. What kind of weapons are made of? The cruelty of the race war was vividly displayed at this moment. Cities and towns were destroyed one after another, farmland became barren, and factories turned into ruins. Now the entire pantheon is filled with displaced refugees. On the way here, Xiaopingan saw a lot of people fleeing on the ground, a lot of troops, a lot of mantis bugs, a lot of battles between the two sides, and even some summoners appear on the battlefield. Xiaopingan learned well this time. Apart from taking down a few mantis bugs and flying flame bugs in the wilderness along the way, Xiaopingan kept a very low profile all the way from Chidorihara, except for using illusion magic to fly invisibly. He would occasionally escape and sneak around, his whereabouts erratic and ever-changing, and the god of fortune boy would sit on his shoulder at any time to keep an eye on all directions and listen to all directions for him. He would avoid a lively occasion like a battlefield if he could, and would never mess around. And because Xiaopingan didn't know how many ancient survivors were drooling and red-eyed on the 10,000 gods, quietly hiding in the dark and staring at the summoner who came here. Kamran city is passing by. Xiaopingan wanted to go to the contact point of the Huanshan section. The coordinates of the previous contact point of the Huanshan sect were placed next to the divine spring in the Seven Suns realm. Going to the contact point of the Huanshan sect, one is to have a comprehensive understanding of the current situation on the Huanshan planet and see if there is any information that can be used. The second is that Xiaopingan wants to take over the Huanshan sect's mission and return the 7-year mission of the Huanshan section, the love of Yangjing Shenquan. Although Xiaopingan has now eliminated the spiritual toxin left by the Huanshan sect in his body and can find an opportunity to leave the Huanshan star at any time, Xiaopingan always feels a little bit guilty in his heart. He and the controllers of the Huanshan sect are all in the sky. They are all a group of summoners who want to save their homeland from the space invasion. It can be said that they share the same fate and cherish each other. If you use someone else's divine spring but run away without doing anything for others, it seems a little bit not too kind, so Xiaopingan wanted to go to the contact point of Huanshan sect to have a look. The contact point is on a large mountain more than 2,000 kilometers east of Kamran city. Judging from the three-dimensional map in Xiaopingan's head, the contact point was on the top of a relatively famous snow-capped mountain. There were few people around it. The specific situation would not be known until we got there. After leaving Jinlan city, Xiaopingan did not waste time and continued to fly with illusion magic. After flying for 3 hours, a stretch of towering mountains appeared in front of Xiaopingan. Xiaopingan turned from the sky to the underground to escape, and then after more than 20 minutes, Xiaopingan emerged from the ground. Halfway up the mountainside, shrouded in clouds and mist, a snow-capped mountain with white snow on the top appeared in front of Xiaopingan. Judging from the altitude of this snow-capped mountain exceeded more than 10,000 meters, and this is not the highest mountain on Pantheon. There are no cities or villages around this snow-capped mountain. The surrounding mountains are full of bare rocks and there is very little vegetation, especially above the snow line. The melted snow water has carved out icy gullies full of pebbles in the mountains. Ordinary people are here. It's hard to survive, so there are very few people here. Xiaopingan hid under the mountain. Instead of going up the mountain rashly, he summoned the god of fortune boy and asked him to fly to the coordinate point on the top of the mountain to take a look. The god of fortune boy was not afraid of the cold and heat, and in a few flashes of his body, he had reached the top of the snow-capped mountain. The peak of the snow-capped mountain was bare, with nothing but the howling wind and the snowflakes in the wind. Along the way, I saw several corpses of mountaineers left on the mountain. They were completely frozen. Those corpses were left here. I don't know how many years have passed since a snow-capped mountain like this. For ordinary people, if they wanted to climb to the top, they might lose their lives. Wait, there's something else. The god of fortune boy's perception is very keen. After just wandering around the top of the mountain, the boy of the god of fortune discovered an abnormally white snow eagle, standing in a pile of snow more than 2,000 meters away from the coordinate point of the peak. His eyes widened. The snow eagle was white and covered with snow. It was on another mountain peak more than 2,000 meters away. It was motionless. Xiaopingyan couldn't even find it. There's something strange about that snow eagle, it's a summoned beast. Except for the snow eagle, there were no Zerg near the snow peak at the coordinate point, and there were no traces of other summoners or ancient remnants. Xiaopingyan thought for a while, then used illusion magic to become invisible. He flew to the top of Xuanhuan and suddenly appeared. He pretended to look around blankly and groped around the peak. Just when Xiaopingyan flew to the top of the mountain and appeared, the snow eagle buried in the snowdrift had already fluttered its wings and flew towards here quickly. In just a minute or two, it had already flown. Arriving at the top of the snow peak here, after circling 3 times above Xiaopingyan's head, he let out a crisp eagle chirp, and then flew towards a valley below the snow peak. Xiaopingyan flew behind the snow eagle. The snow eagle shuttled among the mountains. After flying for about 70 or 80 kilometers, the snow eagle landed on the roof of a small wooden house built on the mountainside and stopped moving. A man wearing a thick bearskin coat, a strong build, a round face, a big beard, and a wolf-skin hat walked out of the cabin. He squinted at Xiaopingyan, who was showing his fallen figure, and grinned. "Yes, it seems that you have merged with the divine spring of Tanja realm and advanced to Tanja realm. Let's go into the house and talk." After that, regardless of Xiaopingyan's situation, he turned around and entered the cabin. Xiaopingyan had previously thought that the contact point of the Xuanhuan sect would be a high-end looking place like an underground base, but he did not expect that the so-called contact point of the Xuanhuan sect was actually a small wooden house in the corner of the mountain. The man just now, he has the vague and fluctuating aura of the summoner, but he is dressed like a hunter who lives in seclusion in the mountains. Xiaopingyan didn't hesitate and entered the cabin directly. There is a fire pit on the ground of the cabin, and a fire is burning in the fire pit, which makes the cabin very warm. There is a metal shelf on the fire pit, and a copper kettle is placed on the shelf. The copper pot is filled with goat's milk, and beside the fire pit, there are still a few corns, which have been roasted golden and fragrant. While the man was lighting the fire, he broke off a stick of corn in his hand and threw the cooked corn into his mouth. "I am the person in charge of this contact point of the Xuanhuan sect, the red-robed deacon of the Xuanhuan section. You can make whatever you want to eat, and I won't be polite to you," the man said directly, without being polite at all. Xiaopingyan was not polite. He sat by the fire pit, picked up a roasted corn, tore off the outer leaves and corn silk, and started eating. Xiaopingyan has not eaten this kind of roasted food for a long time, and he has almost forgotten what it tastes like. These days, what he eats the most underground is bigopil. The soft, waxy, and crispy corn has a unique flavor after being roasted. While eating corn, Xiaopingyan poured himself another glass of goat milk. "You are quite courageous." The man chuckled. "People who come here always think that the goat milk and corn are also poisoned, hee. There's nothing to worry about. Since the Xuanhuan star is here, everyone is not afraid of death. If you are afraid of death, you won't come," Xiaopingyan said. "Well said, but you are not very lucky. I don't have many tasks on hand now. The easier tasks have been taken away by others, and the slightly more difficult tasks have also been taken away. The next batch can be released. I haven't received the task yet, and I may have to wait a few more months," the man said. While speaking, he took out a small wine bottle and took a sip. "Let me ask, what's going on Pantheon now? I've been in seclusion for several months, and the news is very limited." "No wonder," the man nodded. "I think you like it, so I'll tell you the truth. The situation on Pantheon is even more chaotic now than it was a few months ago. The federal government has been completely paralyzed, and there is no hope at all. In the past, the military leaders of each administrative region and the generals of the armed forces have held power, but they are not subordinate to each other. The activities of the Zerg and the ancient remnants are becoming more and more frequent, Like a pot of messy porridge, from the world of the god-killing insects to the 10,000 gods, a large number of forces and summoners from all sides of the star are coming to the Pantheon star, which is both a good thing and a bad thing for us. Xiaopinggan was stunned for a moment, and stopped eating corn in his hands. Why did those forces and summoners from the god-killing insect realm flock to the Pantheon star? It seems you really don't know. The man shook his head. The Pantheon is currently being swallowed by the god-killing insect realm, and is in a special space state of the god-killing insect realm. 2 months ago, someone accidentally entered the summoner of Pantheon, discovered a hidden void secret realm in the void near Pantheon star. In that void secret realm were the ruins of the fallen god's kingdom. I heard that the summoner obtained the secret realm in that void secret realm. Shenzang also dug 2 veins of divine sense crystal, and the news spread to the god-killing insect world. So many forces and summoners from the god-slaying insect world came. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 597. This world is like a rolling wheel that will never stop for anyone. While he is in seclusion deep underground and accumulating means to save his life, some people can discover the divine treasures in the secret realm of the void and dig out the divine treasures. The veins of mind crystals. The world is actually so unfair, everyone has his or her own chance. With such thoughts in his mind, the expression on Xiaopinggan's face was one of unabashed envy. He felt as if he had missed hundreds of millions. I didn't expect that there would be gods hidden in the space where the god-killing insects devoured the 10,000 stars. The hidden secret realm of the void. The so-called divine treasure, the place that true Lord Styx took Xiaopinggan to enter in the depths of the immortal sea, is the divine treasure. There are countless treasures in the divine treasure, which may mean danger to the cultivators, and may also have great consequences. Opportunity. The Wanshen sect didn't expect that if the Wanshen sect knew earlier, the Shenzang would not fall into the hands of others. The man next to Xiaopinggan also said with some regret. But with the influx of so many summoners and forces into the Wanshen star, won't it also alleviate some of the pressure on the Wanshen sect? Xiaopinggan said casually. Yes, the Zerg and the ancient relics are a threat to most people. With so many people coming in, the human race's power on the Pantheon will become stronger. This is a good thing, but the Wanshen sect's control over the Pantheon will also be compromised. It will be weakened, and many plans may be disrupted and interfered with, so this is both a good thing and a bad thing. Just last month, some dead soldiers who entered the Wanshen sect were tracked and took away the divine spring. That man, as he said that, he threw a piece of firewood into the fire pit. The situation on Pantheon is like this now. If you want to try your luck in a place where gods are hidden, you can go to the south pole of Pantheon to have a look. There are many summoners gathered there now. Shenzang depends on fate. Xiaopinggan shook his head. I came here to ask if there is any special task. After completing it, I can get the antidote to the toxins in my body, so that I can complete my relationship with the Wanshen section. The agreement allows me to leave Pantheon immediately without being affected. You want to remove all the toxins from your body in one mission? The man frowned slightly and confirmed. 1 is fine, 2 are fine, not too many. If you grind it out little by little, it would be meaningless to shorten each task to 3 to 5 years. I may not have the patience and time. It is best to complete it in one go. Xiaopinggan said in a deep voice. Are you trying to exchange a mission for the divine spring of the nether realm of the 10,000 gods sect? Xiaopinggan nodded. That's pretty much what it means. The man rubbed the fluffy beard on his chin, looked at Xiaopinggan with a monster look, and pondered for a moment. There are such tasks, but they are almost a narrow escape, or they require sacrifices that are unbearable for ordinary people. The price is huge, and others are afraid to avoid it. Are you really sure you want to take on such a task? You can come and listen, Xiaopinggan said calmly. I happen to have a sect mission here. As long as you accept the sect mission, the Wanshen sect can directly give you a complete antidote. Once the mission is completed, you can leave the Wanshen star and regain your freedom at any time. This mission is not yet available. There is a risk of death. Xiaopinggan looked at the man in front of him with a slightly suspicious look, thinking that the man in front of him was joking with him. There really was such a mission. There was no danger of death. After completing it, he could leave Pantheon. This meant that this mission was worth 1 Qi Yang. Jing Shenquan, no one has taken on such a task yet, can you leave it to yourself? The man seemed to know what Xiaopinggan was thinking. He said calmly, the reason why no one has been able to take on this task before is because although this task will not kill anyone, it is a summons to a realm that leads to the underworld for a teacher, it's as if it's life-threatening. What mission is so strange? Do you know about Horcruxes? Xiaopinggan almost laughed. The man in front of him actually asked a high-level shepherd and a master of soul power if he knew about Horcruxes, haha. Xiaopinggan looked serious on the surface and nodded, of course you know. Horcruxes require soul power to refine. Soul power is a vital treasure of the body for the summoner. Once the summoner loses soul power, just like ordinary people who will suffer from severe anemia and malnutrition, not only the body's qi, blood, and spirit it will be greatly affected, their cultivation level will be reduced, and it will become difficult to fuse the world beads, and the most critical point is that summoners who do not have enough soul power will not have the opportunity to understand the mysteries of the realm even if they advance to the 8 Yang realm in the future, and will not be able to use the realm. Yes, it is true, Xiaopinggan nodded, but does soul power have anything to do with this mission? He, of course it does matter. If you are willing to have the soul power that can be used to refine about 10 ordinary Horcruxes be taken out of your body at once, you can accept this task. Xiaopinggan was stunned. Why is there such a strange mission? The man looked at Xiaopinggan, thinking that Xiaopinggan was frightened, and his tone suddenly became solemn, I'm going to say something ugly in front of you. I will take away the soul power that can refine 10 ordinary Horcruxes from your body at one time. I won't to kill you, these soul powers are also a huge number for a summoner in the 7 Sun realm, equivalent to at least 80% of the soul power in his body, you should know what this means. Xiaopinggan nodded solemnly, you mean this task is to make a 7 Sun realm summoner willingly contribute his soul power? Yes. If a summoner loses less than 20% of his soul power at one time, the lost soul power can be gradually restored by slowly taking various soul power replenishing elixirs and genius treasures in the future. Success, the impact is not big, but if a summoner loses more than 50% of the soul power in his body at one time, the lost soul power will be difficult to recover no matter how many pills and heavenly materials and earthly treasures are taken in the future. At most, it can only be restored once. 20% will have a permanent impact on your cultivation and body, and may even cause you to lose the opportunity to master the field in the future. Do you still want to take on such a task? An ordinary Horcrux consumes less than 0.5 soul power, and one that consumes more than 1.2 soul power is considered a high-quality product. Taking an average value, the soul power required for an ordinary Horcrux is about 0.85 kills. The soul power required to refine 10 ordinary Horcruxes, if any more, is about 10 kills, and an ordinary the soul power in the 7 Sun realm summoner's body is roughly equivalent to 11 or 2 slashes. Therefore, extracting about 10 slashes of soul power from the body of an ordinary 7 Sun realm summoner at one time is a huge blow to an ordinary summoner in the 7 Sun realm. For a summoner, it is indeed an unbearable burden. It is almost equivalent to taking most of an ordinary summoner's life, and will have a permanent negative impact on the body and cultivation. But this request is just like a joke to me. The soul power in my body is already endless. After advancing to the high-level shepherd, the soul power in my body has already reached the state of self-generation, let alone 10 the soul power of killing left and right is just taking 100 soul power at one time, which is just a drop of water for me. This task is equivalent to pulling out every hair on your body, so that you can return the favor of the Wanchen sect? Is there such a good thing in this world? Xiaoping'an was already happy in his stomach, but his face became more and more solemn. His eyebrows were furrowed, his triangular eyes were narrowed, and a layer of cloud quietly climbed up on his long horse face, making him look extra cautious and gentle. Careful. Can I ask, why is there such a mission? If someone needs soul power, can't they just find a few people to draw a little soul power each? The soul power extracted from different people has different sources and is somewhat mixed. The soul power required for this task can only come from one person, and the person who contributes the soul power must be willing. Xiaoping'an asked tentatively, does the Wanchen sect need it? I don't know about that. I was just ordered to issue such a task, and I only know a very few details of the task. Only those who participated in the task can know the specific content and details of the task. Can you let me think about it? Xiaoping'an was afraid that he would make the other party suspicious by agreeing too quickly, so he said deliberately hesitantly. Okay, within the past 3 months, you can come here to see me if you think about it. Thank you. After saying this, Xiaoping'an said goodbye and left. Xiaoping'an walked out of the cabin, used illusion magic to become invisible, and in the blink of an eye he rose into the air and disappeared into the valley. The man looked at Xiaoping'an who was leaving, shook his head, and said to himself, no one will take on such a task. Everyone who asked before was scared off. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 598. After Xiaoping'an left the cabin and flew in the air for more than an hour, he didn't run too far. He found a place in the rolling mountains and landed on the ground. Then he escaped underground and found it tens of thousands of meters deep. A bubble-like cave space, take out the formation disk to protect it, and then settle here. In the cabin just now, Xiaoping'an was afraid that he would arouse suspicion if he agreed too quickly, so he made excuses to delay. Extracting more than 80% of the soul power of your body will have a huge impact on your future practice. The advantage is that you can get the antidote immediately and restore your free body. This is a great opportunity for any ordinary summoner. Difficult decisions must be made with caution. Of course, this is only the superficial statement of the Wanchen section. It is still difficult to determine whether there are other motives behind it. The purpose of willing to pay for the divine spring of the 7 Yang realm is to exchange for the soul power in a person's body. The soul power cannot be mixed and cannot be pieced together by several people. It must be done willingly. It will probably take about 10 cuts. What on earth is it used for? The dream demon is for those who know that they can enter the spiritual world. This bit of soul power is nothing at all. Could this be a trap to find yourself? Xiaoping'an crossed his legs on a stone platform in a cave. He went up, gently stroking the stubble on his chin with his hand, and fell into deep thought. After pondering for a moment, Xiaoping'an's eyes suddenly lit up, and he suddenly thought of a possibility. Could it be? Xiaoping'an suddenly thought that there seemed to be such a piece of information in the secret method he mastered for soul masters to refine soul weapons. The holy weapons refined by a strong man in the demigod realm with his own soul power have terrifying power. Generally speaking, such holy weapons are conceived and raised in the sea of consciousness by a strong man in the demigod realm. The sacred vessel can become one with the body. Sacred weapons are almost the most powerful weapons that summoners under gods can master. As for sacred weapons, they are exclusive to gods, and even demigods cannot fully control them. However, there is also a special situation, that is, a sacred weapon refined by a strong person in the demigod realm using their soul power. After the strong person in the demigod realm dies, if the sacred weapon still exists and is made by a strong person in the demigod realm, in order to maintain the terrifying power of the holy weapon, summoners below the level must use at least the soul power of the 7 suns realm to nurture it, and the source of the soul power of the sacred weapon cannot be too complex and must be voluntary. If the summoner who provides the soul power is not voluntary, the extracted soul power will carry the summoner's strong negative emotional energy and cannot be used to nurture the sacred weapon. On the contrary, it will damage the power of the sacred weapon. The requirements for this task issued by the Huanshen sect are too similar to the requirements for conceiving and raising a sacred weapon. Could it be that the Huanshen sect is looking for someone who voluntarily provides soul power to help someone conceive a sacred weapon? Very possible. As for whether this mission could be a trap, Xiaopinggan, after careful analysis, felt that it was unlikely that this mission was a trap. First of all, the Huanshen sect and the Blood Demon sect are hostile to the lineage of the dominant demon god. The possibility of cooperation between the Huanshen sect and the Blood Demon sect is very small. Secondly, this mission is aimed at the dead soldiers who came to the Huanshen planet to fight for their lives. How could Shenzong know that he would come to the 10,000 gods planet for the divine spring of the Seven Yang realm? The worst case scenario is that a certain big boss in the Huanshen sect sets this trap in order to cooperate with the Blood Demon sect in order to become a god. Then, this creates a paradox. The dream demon knows that he has the ability to enter and exit the spiritual world. And the poison that the Huanshen sect inflicts on people is the poison of the spirit body. Therefore, if you really come to the Huanshen star, you need to get rid of the poison of the spirit body. First of all, you must find a way from the spirit world, even the poison of the spirit body. It is completely useless to the shepherd, so why would I be willing to sell my soul power and expose my identity for a poison that cannot threaten me? The premise for the existence of this trap and the trap itself are contradictory. Therefore, the possibility of the first one is very high. After understanding this, Xiaopinggan was no longer in a hurry. Now that he had time, he could just increase his strength a little. He smiled slightly, moved his hand, and took out a world bead that flashed 4 colors of red, yellow, blue, and black. The world bead. Among them are 4 small seal characters Sinanskar. This world bead was erupted from the body of a flying flame insect that Xiaopinggan killed on the way to the contact point. Several other flying winged flame bugs and mantis knife bugs also had boundary beads on their bodies, but they were all fused by Xiaopinggan. Only this boundary bead was not fused by Xiaopinggan. As you advance to the 7 Yang realm, the more realm beads you fuse, the fewer rare realm beads you can encounter that can be fused. This is the first one that Xiaopinggan got after he came to Huanshen Star and killed a bunch of bugs. Fusion of world beads. Sinan's car, also called the compass car, is an ancient vehicle equipped with a compass. In ancient China, the compass was an important tool for long-distance travel. It was specially placed on the car and guarded by a dedicated person. Legend has it that the compass was first invented during the battle between the Yellow Emperor and Qiyu. There are 3 theories about who invented it. One is the Yellow Emperor, the other is Xuanhuan, and the third is Feng Hao. Later, Ma Jun during the Three Kingdoms period also based it on. According to historical records, the compass that appeared in the Huangdi era was rebuilt. These are China's 4 great inventions. Xiaopinggan is really looking forward to it, but he doesn't know what role this world bead will play. The blood dripped on the boundary bead, and in a moment, Xiaopinggan was surrounded by a cocoon of light. When Xiaopinggan opened his eyes, he found himself standing in a gorgeous hall. Sitting in the hall was a young emperor in his 30s wearing the emperor's crown and dragon robe. Civil and military courtiers were listed on both sides of the hall, and Xiaopinggan himself, however, standing at the back among civil servants is not considered outstanding. A voice echoed in the hall. "Your Majesty, it is said that there was a compass in ancient times, built by the Yellow Emperor, but there are not enough documents to prove it. It is just a casual talk. Sinan has it, and it is easy to make. I have it in my house, but the compass is not. It is absolutely false. I guess it is just the imagination of future generations of foolish men and women." With Xiaopinggan's rich historical knowledge, he immediately knew the man's identity as soon as he opened his mouth. This was Gao Tanglong, a regular servant of the Wei Kingdom during the Three Kingdoms period, and the young emperor sitting at the head of the hall should be Emperor Wei Ming. Needless to say, my current identity is Ma Jun, the wood sage and inventor during the Three Kingdoms period. My current identity is that I am a minister of the Wei state, so I can go to court. As soon as Gao Tanglong finished speaking, another person stood up and said, "What Mr. Gao said is true. There are too many myths in ancient legends. The theory of the compass is not very credible. Confucius also has no idea about things above 3 generations. I believe that although books such as Gi Gutsi also mention the existence of a compass, I'm afraid it's just what others say." Xia Ping'an looked at the man who spoke behind him. This man was wearing armor, majestic and looked extremely conceited. He should be Qin Lang, the general of the cavalry. As soon as the two of them finished speaking, the civil and military ministers in the hall started talking. Why did Wei's courtiers suddenly discuss the compass in the hall today? Xia Ping'an was also confused. He didn't know who started the conversation, but it was obvious that Emperor Wei Ming, who was sitting above, was very interested in this topic. Listening to everyone's discussions with great interest. Suddenly, Emperor Wei Ming turned his attention to Xia Ping'an, who had been silent, and suddenly said, "Di Heng, you have always studied these ingenious things. I don't know what you think of the compass. The book says that during the time of the Yellow Emperor, to create a compass, do you think there is such a compass?" Xia Ping'an stepped out of the queue holding a scepter, saluted Emperor Wei Ming and said, "Your Majesty, the principle of guiding a car is the same as that of Sinan. It is just that the car uses mechanical transmission to transmit the pointing force of the magnet in the car to the car. There is nothing surprising about climbing a wooden figure and making it point south. It's just that later generations didn't study its principle seriously, so they thought it was strange." Gao Tanglong sneered after hearing this. Qin Lang and the ministers who just said there was no compass also shook their heads. Emperor Wei Ming suddenly became interested. "Di Heng, can you make a compass?" "As long as your Majesty gives me a month, I can make a compass," Xia Ping'an said in a deep voice. "Ha ha ha." Emperor Wei Ming laughed and looked around. "Then I will give you a month. If you can make a compass, I will give you a big reward. My dear friends, please stop arguing for a while and wait. For 1 month, let's see what the compass that Di Heng built for us looks like." Building a compass is not difficult for Xia Ping'an. What's more, he is now in charge of the Wei state, and he also manages many craftsmen of the Wei state. As long as he puts forward ideas and needs anything, someone will soon be there. I can get it done for him. After leaving the palace, Xia Ping'an returned to his office and spent 2 days behind closed doors to draw pictures. After the drawings were completed, he gathered a group of craftsmen to start trial production. As a result, in less than half a month, he made the compass and brought it to the palace. Emperor Wei Ming and a bunch of ministers came to see it. When everyone saw that the wooden man on the compass car made by Xia Ping'an did not matter which way the car went, and one hand of the wooden man always pointed south, everyone was amazed. The world of Jizu is shattered. The upper limit of divine power is added to 48 points. The divine power given by China's 4 great inventions is really generous. Xia Ping'an guesses whether these 48 points of divine power represent the intentions of all directions. After increasing the upper limit of divine power by 48 points, Xia Ping'an's secret mandala, the upper limit of divine power, suddenly became 8,925 points. This world bead provides Xia Ping'an with a technique to summon a compass. The compass can guide the summoner when he is lost, which is also useful. After fusing this world bead, Xia Ping'an didn't go anywhere for the remaining 2 days, and continued to study the formation disk and runes underground. When 3 days passed, Xia Ping'an left the underground. With a solemn and determined expression on his face, he went to the contact point again, found the person, and said that he was willing to take on the previous task. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 599. More than 10 days later, near the Antarctic Circle of Pantheon. Xiaoping'an was flying in the sky, and flying with Xiaoping'an was the head of the Xuanhuan sect, whose surname was Hu. After Xiaoping'an expressed his willingness to accept the task, he only stayed in the cabin for 2 days when the tiger palm incident came and took Xiaoping'an away. The two of them had been flying in the air for several days, and today they finally arrived near the Antarctic Circle of Pantheon. The tiger palm guy was strict and rigid in everything he did, and there was no nonsense along the way. Xiaoping'an and the tiger palm guy probably spoke less than 10 sentences a day when they were together. The Antarctic Circle of Pantheon is also an ice sheet. The east and south sides of the Antarctic Circle are bordered by the sea. To the northwest is a large continent. Outside the Antarctic Circle, you can also see a large area of green. When you get close to the Antarctic Circle, it becomes there are large tracts of tundra, and further south, there is a wide field of ice and snow. The two of them were flying in the sky. The Tiger Master used magic to cover their figures. Under them was the endless turbulent sea, with several warships and a large sea aircraft landing platform parked on the sea. A battle is going on this sea. Planes on the sea level were constantly taking off and landing, bombing a large number of Zerg gathered on a huge island hundreds of kilometers away. One by one, the flying flame bugs were flying in the sky, chasing the fighter planes. From time to time, some flying winged flame bugs were shot down by fighter planes and fell to the sea. There were also fighter planes that smoked or burned, disintegrated in the air or crashed on the sea. It fell to pieces. Human fighter planes are faster than the flying flame bugs and have a longer attack range, but the flying wing flame bugs are more flexible than the fighter planes and can hover in the air. The fight between the two sides is really inseparable. A fighter plane, more than 2,000 meters in the air in front of Xiaoping'an, was caught by a flying flame insect and torn apart. The fighter plane disintegrated in the air and turned into a fireball. The pilot ejected to escape. Seeing that, he turned a blind eye to the tiger palm matter, as if he hadn't seen it at all, and even planned to bypass the airspace where the two sides were fighting in front. Xiaoping'an couldn't help but asked, "Tiger Palm, do you want to help?" "No need," Mr. Tiger Palm didn't say any unnecessary nonsense, and there was no expression on his face. "There is a summoner nearby. I brought you here to complete the sex mission. Completing the sex mission is the first element. If you can avoid being exposed, try not to be exposed, everything else is secondary." "Well, since you, the Xuanhuan sect, are not in a hurry, then I don't have to be in a hurry either." Xiaoping'an shrugged and stopped talking. But to be honest, the closer to the Antarctic Circle of Pantheon, the more high-level summoner Xiaoping'an encountered. But today, he had already encountered several groups. Those summoners were flying unscrupulously in the sky, and there were no traces of them at all. Ignoring the Zerg and the armies on Pantheon, they kept shuttling through the huge crack in the sky, seemingly looking for something. The space in the sky here seems to belong to the atmosphere of Pantheon, but in fact, it is connected to the world of god-killing insects. Looking up, the huge dark red space crack is in the Antarctic Circle of Pantheon. The sky above was completely open, and in the huge space cracks, lightning and thunder were heard, and black tornadoes and cyclones were raging in the space cracks. Mr. Tiger's judgment was correct. Just when the pilot who parachuted from the fighter plane was about to die in the mouth of the flying flame insect that rushed over again, a snow-white ice dragon appeared in the sky and entangled it instantly. He killed the flying winged flame bug, causing the wings of the flying winged flame bug to freeze and turn into a huge ice lump, falling from the sky. Sure enough, a summoner came to join in the fun. The current situation on Pantheon is really a mess, with all races and characters all appearing, as if they are rushing to have the Last Supper before the planet is swallowed up and destroyed. Xiaoping'an and Tiger Palm had just flown less than 10 kilometers away. On the island hundreds of kilometers away, a bright light flashed, and a huge fireball and mushroom cloud rose from the island. It could be seen hundreds of kilometers away. See. I don't know how many Zerg species on the island turned into ashes at this moment. Xiaoping'an was also shocked by the tactical nuclear bomb. This is almost the only weapon that the army on Pantheon has that can threaten high-level summoners. The physical laws on Pantheon have not changed yet, but then as space devours deeper, it may not take many years before these weapons on this planet can only become memories. Tiger Palm just glanced at the place where the light rose, seemed not to be surprised, and continued to fly forward with Xiaoping'an. 2 hours later, the two of them had entered the sky above the Antarctic ice sheet. Flying hundreds of thousands of meters above a huge iceberg, with lightning and thunder above the space crack, Tiger Palm suddenly stopped. Tiger Palm, long time no see. A voice appeared in Xiaoping'an's ear. Xiaoping'an looked along the voice and saw an old woman with silver hair flying out of the black mist in the space crack above her head. It flew directly towards the two of them. Judging from the aura of the old woman, she was also in the Eight Suns realm. As soon as this person flew in, Tiger Palm removed the illusions from him and Xiaoping'an. The so-called illusions have no effect at all in front of high-level summoners once the distance reaches a certain level. Protector Yan. Tiger Palm nodded and saluted the old woman who flew over, and then pointed directly at Xiaoping'an. That's him. The old woman flew in front of the two of them, looked at Xiaoping'an from head to toe with a pair of dazzling eyes, and nodded slowly. She looks pretty good and energetic. You can explain the situation to him clearly. This matter needs to be done consenting. Extracting soul power is not a child's play, but don't regret it when the time comes and make some troubles. I've made it clear, he is voluntary. Tiger Palm nodded, and then looked at Xiaoping'an. You follow Protector Yan, and Protector Yan will give you the antidote. After he finished speaking about Tiger Palm, he turned around and flew away without any nonsense. Xiaoping'an felt that Huzang was like a courier whose purpose was to deliver him here and be done with it. Come with me. The old woman glanced at Xiaoping'an, waved her hand, and a black mist enveloped the two of them. The old woman took Xiaoping'an and flew towards the electric light-shrouded space crack at a high speed. The electricity flew completely into the crack in just a moment. Surrounded by dark red or dark black rolling thick black clouds, streaks of lightning pierced around Xiaoping'an. This huge space crack was like an abyss of hell in the sky, which was terrifying. After flying for about half an hour, the two of them had reached the depths of the space crack. The old woman moved her hand, took out a token and waved it in the air. A vortex-like portal to the void secret realm appeared in front of Xiaoping'an, and then the old woman flew into the vortex with Xiaoping'an. With just a flash of light and shadow in front of his eyes, Xiaoping'an found himself in a place full of green bamboos, green mountains, and green waters in the distance, colorful butterflies flying around him, and the sound of birds singing and flowers everywhere. A gorgeous palace with golden glazed tiles was right here. In the bamboo forest. There are 3 words Tianxing sect written on the main entrance of the palace. On the mountain top in the distance, there are still many summoners flying around. Under a waterfall, there are also people practicing magic under the waterfall, freezing the flowing waterfall. Xiaoping'an was stunned. What kind of place is this? The old woman looked at Xiaoping'an and grinned. Little doll, I see you have good cultivation. You have already reached the nether realm at a young age. This is just a secret palace where our Tianxing sect goes on patrol. Why, you haven't seen it before. What? Tianxing sect? Xiaoping'an was stunned for a moment. Isn't this the 10,000 gods sect? Of course this is not the Wanchen section, the old woman said, already walking towards the main entrance of the palace. Our Tianxing sect and the Wanchen sect have a good relationship, so please ask the Wanchen sect to help us find the right person. Don't worry, as long as if you provide soul power, I will give you the antidote and let you leave. Everything will be as agreed between you and the Wanchen section Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 600. Before the old woman reached the entrance of the palace, a group of maids in long skirts came out to greet her and saluted her respectfully. Those maids are all beautiful, with rosy skin, bright eyes, and cute smiles. They look like real people, but they are all summoned characters. They have the unique aura of summoned characters. This aura is in the eyes of high-level summoners. Very obvious. Take him to bathe and change clothes, and then take him to Yanyan Palace. The old woman casually ordered the maids. After saying this, the old woman seemed to remember something and looked at Xiaopingan. By the way, your name is what name? Mei Zheng, Xiaopingan said. The old woman nodded. Go. Mr. Mei, please. A summoned maid made a gesture with a smile, and then led Xiaopingan towards the side of the hall. Xiaopingan didn't say anything more, and just followed the maid to bathe and change clothes. At this time, Xiaopingan breathed a sigh of relief. If everything in front of him was a trap, then the moment he entered the so-called secret palace was actually the best time for these people to control him. Xiaopingan just now in his own space warehouse, he has prepared a lot of thunder talismans and protective arrays. If he is not ready, he will attack people. However, in the secret palace, there is no weaponry or arrangement for him. It seems that the opponent, if you really just want to extract soul power, then it will be easy. The old woman just now said that this is the secret palace of Tianxing sect on patrol. This Tianxing palace seems to be very wealthy. This means that the void secret realm in front of you may be movable. Otherwise, Tianxing sect it is impossible for the secret palace of the patrol to be built on the Pantheon. If you are wealthy, you should have a lot of world beads, that would be easy. Xiaopingan smiled slightly in his heart. The summoned maids brought Xiaopingan to a courtyard. There was a hot spring rockery in the yard. The steam was steaming, which was really enjoyable. Then a group of maids dressed Xiaopingan and bathed in the hot spring. Some maids sprinkled flower petals in the hot spring. Some prepared new clothes for Xiaopingan, while others went into the water wearing tool to scoop water to wash Xiaopingan's hair. Xiaopingan took the attitude of taking things as they come and let the maids fiddle with them. He knew that this so-called bathing and changing clothes may appear to be a matter of the people of the Tianxing sect, but in fact it is just a different way for the people of the Tianxing sect to confirm. I wonder if there is anything wrong with me. There are some special herbs in the bathing water, and magic has also been cast on me. If I sneaked in with a disguised face and identity, or if my body has any serious diseases or parasites, demonic spirits and the like will appear when bathing. Outside the courtyard where he was bathing, Xiaopingan felt that there were two powerful auras lurking. If he did anything wrong, people outside might take action. It wasn't until he was almost finished bathing that Xiaopingan didn't appear to be in any condition, then the two powerful auras outside the yard quietly receded. This was also because Xiaopingan's soul power was extremely powerful, which made him extremely sensitive to various auras. Only then did he realize that there were masters lurking outside the courtyard. If another summoner came here, he might not know anything. Thinking that the Tianxing sect actually entrusted the Wanchen sect to find candidates who could provide soul power, Xiaopingan felt that the Tianxing sect seemed to be very cautious. I don't know what they were worried about. Could it be that they were afraid of someone sneaking in? In addition, this secret palace actually obtained the Pantheon, and this arrangement seemed strange. But this is not important. What is important is that he will soon be able to knock on the bamboo pole of Tianxing sect, he. After a while, after bathing, the maids put on Xiaopingan a black mage robe that was soft, light, and good quality, put on a crown, and wore cloud boots, which made Xiaopingan look fresh and energetic, and then took Xiaopingan with her. Pingan left the bathing courtyard and took Xiaopingan to the Yanyan Hall. The old woman was in the Yanyan Hall just now. In addition to the old woman, There was also a stocky old man with gray hair and buck teeth in the Yanyan Hall. The two of them were drinking tea, seemingly waiting for Xiaopinggan's arrival. The buck-toothed old man has protruding lips, a pair of small eyes that are extremely smart, and two pairs of snow-white eyebrows that are slightly splayed at the end of the eyebrows. It has a comic effect at first glance, but his face is still extremely serious. Mian Lao, this is Mei Zheng. The old woman introduced Xiaopinggan to the old man. Can I ask Mian Lao to see if he is suitable? Well, the old man named Mian Lao looked at Xiaopinggan, nodded slightly, and said in a slightly vague tone, the realm of Tanja realm is enough. It depends on whether the soul power can withstand it. Some summoners, those who have refined soul weapons and lost too much soul power, or have practiced some secret techniques or eaten some special things, resulting in mixed and impure soul power, are not good candidates, the old man said, and with a move of his hand, he took out a pagoda-like object more than 2 feet long was placed on the table in front of him, and he said to Xiaopinggan, come here and hold the bottom of the soul power probe with your hand. Let me see how much soul power you have deep. The pagoda-shaped soul probe was exquisitely designed. There were numerical scales on the outside of the pagoda, and there was a crystal tube inside. Some mysterious patterns were engraved on the outside of the crystal tube, and there was a drop of rolling blood inside the tube. Xiaopinggan took a look. You know what's going on. This is when the soul master who masters the secret method of dividing souls puts a drop of blood injected with his own soul power into the crystal tube, and then uses some secret methods of dividing souls to apply it to the tower. Then the tower becomes a soul power probe that can sense the soul power of others. This thing is like a thermometer to detect soul power. There is no specific unit of measurement for soul power, so the scale numbers Xiaopinggan saw on the soul power probe from 0 to 100 were just the old man's own perception definition. This old man seems to have a lot of time left, and is stronger than the average soul master, but compared with himself, he. Xiaopinggan walked over obediently and held the bottom of the pagoda-like soul probe with his hand. Inject some divine power into it. The old man said next to him. Xiaopinggan injected a little divine power into the soul power probe. Then, the drop of blood in the crystal tube inside the soul power probe began to emit a faint red light. The drop of blood floated all the way up from the bottom of the crystal tube. Get up and flow to about 53 on the probe scale, then stop moving. The old man suddenly opened his mouth wide and looked at Xiaopinggan in shock. Xiaopinggan only had about 38 soul power left in his body at this moment. He condensed the remaining soul power using the secret method of clone to form a soul power clone that could not move, and then quietly crossed his legs in the spiritual world of the secret mandala within the temple. Therefore, no matter how others detect and check, the soul power in Xiaopinggan's body is about 38%. Mian Lao, how is this person? The mother-in-law next to her saw the shocked expression on the old man's face and looked at the scale of the soul probe. She was not sure whether it was suitable or inappropriate, so she couldn't help but ask. The expression on Mian Lao's face suddenly changed from shock to excitement and joy, and he stood up suddenly. It's suitable, it's simply perfect. The soul power in this person's body is about 3 times that of a normal 7-sun realm summoner. Moreover, his soul power is extremely pure, and he is the best candidate to extract it. After his soul power is extracted, as long as it is maintained, it is possible to recover in the future. After a few years, it can be extracted again. This is the best candidate. Hearing what Mian Lao said, the old woman was also stunned. Her eyes flashed towards Xiaopinggan, and there was something different about her. How can there be such a deep and pure soul power? It's like no 1 in a million. No, let me confirm it again. Mian Lao said excitedly. He seemed to be happy to see Sun Xian, and he couldn't help but stretch out his muscles. He stretched out a hand and pressed it directly on Xiaopinggan's wrist, and directly used the soul-splitting secret method to explore Xiaopinggan's body. After a few seconds, Mian Lao withdrew his hand with a satisfied expression on his face and looked at the old woman. The soul power probe is correct. The soul power in this person's body is indeed about 3 times that of an ordinary person. It is extremely pure. This matter stable. After saying that, Mian Lao looked at Xiaopinggan again. Why is the soul power in your body so strong and different from ordinary people? Have you eaten something special? Xiaopingyan pretended not to understand and licked his lips. I don't know either. By the way, I used to look for medicinal materials in a void secret realm and saw a transparent man riding a foot-long golden deer. The child, the deer, and the child were alive and fragrant. They could pass through mountains and trees. They seemed to have magical powers. I couldn't help but catch them, but they got into the rocks and escaped. In the end, only a piece of the antlers was left. Just eat the antlers. Ah, no wonder, that is a spiritual mushroom that has been cultivated for more than 10,000 years. Mian Lao looked relieved, and then felt a little pain in his body. The flesh on his face was trembling, and his brows were wrinkled. It has been practiced for more than 10,000 years. Rousey cultivates human form and mounts. It is a real treasure of heaven and earth. It gathers the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and has the effect of replenishing the soul. How can you eat the antlers of Rousey like this? If you use the right method, you can use it. The antlers will then grow precious meat mushrooms. After raising them for decades, you can get a little juice of the meat mushrooms every year. It is a treasure. If you can brew it, the effectiveness of the antlers can be doubled. It is a waste. Waste, simply a waste. Haha, this old man is quite cute. I didn't know how to do it at the time, but after I cut off the antlers, they changed color in the blink of an eye, shrank, and the aroma also faded, so I ate it directly. Mian Lao, if this person is suitable, can we start now? The old woman next to him said simply. Of course, you can do it now. Mian Lao nodded affirmatively. Well, I'll ask the saint to come over and ask Mr. Mian and Mr. May to follow me to the practice room. The old woman had already stood up. Unknowingly, the old woman called Xiaopinggan Mr. May.